But anyway, I was sent out as to start the military government on Pohnpei Island, because that was King's responsibility, and that's the Navy's responsibility. And when Admiral King couldn't have any control over me, working for MacArthur, he said, I need all the trained military government people I have to govern the islands of the Pacific. So some of us went to Kwajalein, some of us went to Pohnpei and Inuit, various places scattered around. I happened to be the one that went to Pohnpei. And I set up a government on Pohnpei that the natives liked. The most interesting thing about Pohnpei was that when I first got there, they said there's great unrest amongst the natives. There's unrest. We've got to do something about this unrest. I said, what caused the unrest? They said, well, this is a very devout country. They're very devout Catholics, and they have two priests on the island that have been instructing these people that since the Japanese are gone, they'll all have to go. The Japanese had charge of the courts, and they granted divorces and marriages and took charge of all of that. And said, now since the Japanese are gone, you all have to go back with your original mates. And that caused the unrest. And so, and that was going to be me who was going to have to solve that, so I solved it. And I didn't waste any time, because there wasn't any time to be wasted. I had to get an answer right away. So I sat down and wrote the marriage and divorce code for the Pohnpei Island. And I didn't take it to the people, I took it to the priests. I said, now this is going to be the law of the land while I'm here. I'm not going to have anything to do with this marriage and divorce business. It's going to be the district supervisors, district people that I set up for each district. They're going to have charge of marriage and divorces. They're going to set up the plans, and they're going to write the laws on what's going to take place. I said, I'm not going to have anything to do with it. Well, I didn't have anything to do with it, because the priests took it to the people the next Sunday. They spent 2 and 3 hours explaining the new marriage and divorce code. And there was no trouble from then on, because it was purely up to the local district supervisor of each of the districts in Pohnpei, the elected representative of the people who was going to have a democracy there, the elected head man for each district. And that, of course, was always the guy that had always been the head man. And so he got elected head, and he had charge of marriage and divorces from then on. And that solved the problem. There's no more problem with marriage and divorces in Pohnpei. And they still remember me out there, because there was a difference. They came when I got ready to leave, an old man came to me, and he said, we're sending a petition to President Truman asking that you be sent back as our civilian governor. We know this isn't going to last, this military isn't going to stay here, but we want you sent back as the civilian governor of Pohnpei. I said, no, you see, I'm a farm boy, and I have a business. I'm a farm jobs that I've got to go back to when I get home. I just can't do that. And they're feeling sorry because I couldn't come back as a civilian governor. And it was a thing that the natives were starting to worry about already, because they realized that as soon as we left, they'd be turned over to the Department of Interior. And in the United States, the Department of Interior was supposed to handle the Indian Bureau. And they would disappear from the face of the earth like the Indians have. Never be heard from again. And they weren't very happy about that, but that's the way things work out, and the way it did work out. And I haven't been back to know how it came out, but I left the Pohnpeians running their own government with their own headmen, their own central council. And when this old man came to bring this petition that that the council was sending to President Truman, I told him I couldn't do that. I just wasn't going to be able to come back as a civilian governor. Why, it was a disappointment to them, but it was an interesting thing going on right then, because the Japanese were gone. And this old man came in that brought the petition. When he left, the interpreter said to me, the interpreter was a Dutch planter that knew about Pohnpei and English and everything. And he said that the
Dutch planter.
Yeah. This Dutch planter was name was Leo. Carlos. It was Leo and Carlos Etchite were the two Dutch planters on the island, and Carlos said, "Do you know who the old man was that brought the petition to you?" And I said, "Well, he's the man in charge of U Village. He's the director. He's the president of U Village." "Oh no," he said, "that wasn't what I meant." He said he was one of the leaders that killed the German governors in 1910. So then I had to study and find out all about the rebellion that killed the German governors. And I left that report on the island, and I still have that if I can find it. And but the Germans were very cruel to the natives, and they used buggy whips to keep them working on the roads. And the natives finally decided they didn't want to put up with that any longer, so they organized a posse and went after there weren't very many Germans there, and they went after killed several of the German governors. And then, of course, the Germans sent a big force in and tried to run them all down, but they didn't get this old man. He wasn't available, and he lived through it. But the Germans did come back in and kill a lot of natives over that. But that was the type of thing that the natives knew about, and they knew how serious it was to be governed by some foreign country. And they were afraid of what would happen, and they had a chance to see the way I operated, and that's why they wanted me to come back. Well, anyway, I've got that phase of it.